Kennedy School, and the Design School. I'm also a co-chair of the new Harvard Alumni for Climate and the Environment Shared Interest Group, which is putting on this event. And so on behalf of our leadership team, we're glad to welcome you to our first event. Just a little bit about our group. The Harvard Alumni for Climate and the Environment is a new official group under the Harvard Alumni Association. And we have a growing team of volunteer leaders helping to build this resource. As a volunteer-led organization run by and for Harvard alums, our mission is to help build power in our community by connecting and supporting our alums around climate change and a more sustainable and just world. Thank you for being a part of our first event. And if you are a Harvard affiliate and interested in joining our alumni group, keep an eye out for a link that we're going to send to you after the event where you can sign up and become a member. Now onto the program. So the way this program is going to work is we have 7 students presenting 6 different talks, and they'll each have about 5 minutes to share their problem and solution that they've found to address the climate crisis. We have a wide range of talks today, and we're looking forward to hearing them all with you. So to kick us off, we have Jessica from the Harvard Chan School of Public Health. Jessica, feel free to take it away.
Great, thanks so much. And thanks everyone for joining. Hope you can see the slides. So I'm a graduating doctoral student in public health with a prior background in environmental engineering, and I'm excited to talk briefly with you today about something at the intersection of health and environment. The need for renewable energy at hospitals and community centers is more clear than ever, and if we don't work harder to mobilize around this now, when will we? So I think that we're here because we care about the future of our planet. Hopefully that's why I've tuned in today. And we know there's a scientific consensus that our climate's changing and we need to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. Beyond that, we also face vast inequities in energy access. Recent research in 46 low and middle income countries found that 59% of health facilities that they surveyed did not have reliable energy. The World Health Organization previously estimated that 1 in 4 facilities in sub-Saharan Africa have no access to electricity at all. There's a real human cost to this. We know that energy access is essential for our healthcare systems as they respond to the current pandemic, as well as they provide all the other health services that we need to survive, whether for COVID-19 or other health conditions. Imagine being a first responder trying to prevent unnecessary deaths when you can't run a ventilator, use your lab equipment for diagnostic testing, or even see at night without lighting. But we can do something about this. We can put renewable energy systems at health clinics around the world. If the grid electricity is intermittent, adding renewables can provide backup power and even generate excess that could be shared back in some cases. Where there's no prior grid infrastructure, we could use standalone systems and mini grids. And we have an opportunity to electrify community centers together with health clinics to increase access to critical information and communication resources. This can support virtual work and learning, and we know that economic stability and education are tied to health and well-being. Look, this idea isn't novel or rocket science. It's something that's been done and has proven impact, but we're not doing nearly enough, and the pandemic has shown us that it's needed now more than ever. We need to see this implemented at scale. And it matters because there's so many potential benefits. Renewable energy systems can help reduce greenhouse gas emissions, particularly compared to the diesel generators that are often used now for emergency power around the world. And energy access can also save lives in many ways. Beyond powering equipment, health clinics with electricity and connectivity can engage in telemedicine, increasing access to care without increasing risk. They can better communicate with patients for triage, contact tracing, follow-up, as well as keeping loved ones updated. Electrified facilities can even offer online training and other resources to support their healthcare workers. And because we care deeply about reducing inequities in society, we know that energy access is critical to enable people to learn, earn an income, and connect with the global community. We need to address this digital divide. Imagine not being able to get guidance on how to protect you and your family from COVID-19, receive other critical information, or even use your phone to call the health center because your battery died. I'm currently working with a team that's trying to electrify health facilities and community centers by addressing a major gap: financing. Solix Renewables is building a digital platform for regional and international funders to come together to support renewable energy projects for communities and health facilities that need them, starting in Kenya. This project was one of the winners of the Energizing Health track of a hackathon at MIT and is collaborating with Dr. Renzo Ginto from the Healthcare Without Harm community as they convene a global network of green hospitals. There's a growing movement of people who are pushing this forward now at a critical time. And you can join this movement, whether you help provide access to funding and other resources, offer technical support, advocate or directly change policies, leverage your network to connect potential partners. What's your piece of the puzzle that you can contribute? The pandemic has shown us that affordable, reliable, sustainable energy access is essential for our health, work, education, entertainment, and more, essential for our physical and mental health being. And yet, so many communities and health facilities around the world lack access. What will you do to help ensure that we can finally address this divide? So please reach out if you have any questions or ideas, if you'd like to support the SolEx Renewables team, or if you'd like to engage in any other way. Thank you again for listening, and please stay safe.
Thank you for sharing, Jessica. We can all give some digital and virtual round of applause, and congratulations. We're excited for your work. Next up, I'd like to introduce Sienna, a mid-career Master's in Public Administration student at the Kennedy School, who will be talking about the inevitable is upon us, learning from COVID-19 to communicate the climate crisis. Take it away, Sienna.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Danny. And thank you so much for the opportunity to be here today. It's ironic because I flew across, my son and I moved cross country in the past 2 weeks from Boston to California. And today it is projected to be 100 degrees. I grew up in California. I never remember an 100-degree day, but that's the normal. And it's going to be like this until Friday. And so as I sweat with you today, it's kind of the perfect backdrop for this conversation and to hear what everybody is saying. So I'm a climate convert, and it's so interesting because even as I did my pitch to be a part of this evening, it was so interesting because I always feel like I'm an imposter in the climate world, and we all are a little bit. I'm someone that doesn't really recycle a year ago, and I'm someone that didn't really get it and didn't really get why eating meat had a connection with climate. And that's what Harvard does for you. And that's what the Kennedy School has done for me, is beginning to understand is how very teeny little small actions that we do in our everyday life have a part in the world's situation. And then comes COVID-19. So in my own particular case, I have studied crisis management, and crisis management is not like a dirty diaper in my house. It's crisis happens every 5 minutes with my 3-year-old, but crisis in the grand scheme of things, whether it's a hurricane, climate change related disasters, whether it's an earthquake, whatever you can imagine, that is crisis. And crisis is happening literally like every month, every few weeks, depending on what news you're paying attention to. And that's the charge that I want to leave with you today, and the charge that I want you to really be thinking about as you listen to the next 6-7 speakers, is this idea of, in crisis, what can you do? For myself, I was really struck when we started the year, last academic year, September 2nd, 2019, and Hurricane Dorian had just struck the Bahamas. I love the Bahamas. I love the beach. I've been traveling there for 19 years. But I also knew I wasn't like a good rubble picker-upper. So I was trying to figure out, what can I do? And it related to this conversation of climate in the sense that this is starting to impact everybody. And so as you hear about a water solution, a carbon solution, a policy solution, what we have to learn from COVID-19 is, in the face of crisis and loss, which we have lost everything. We've lost the ability to go outside. We've lost the ability to go to a grocery store when we want to, or to a restaurant or bar. And that's really the charge. And so COVID-19, as climate advocates, is actually the best gift that we've ever been given. Because what we have learned is we can unite as a global community. And in the face of despair, and in the face of agony, and just the things that seem overcome, that we can't overcome, is what we need to learn for climate. And so for all of the solutions that you hear about today, what Jessica just spoke to, it's this idea of you may not be passionate about that particular solution, but we need to be passionate about, right now it's about a virus, but imagine 10 years from now, if it's about it's too hot to go outside, or if it's because I live on the ocean front in Miami Beach and my apartment doesn't live there or it doesn't exist anymore. And that's really the lesson that we have to take away from this. And so when I describe myself as a climate convert, it really is, it's this idea of the unimaginable is here. I don't know how many of you saw the movie Contagion. And I laughed because I was in a climate management class with Juliet Kayyem, who's a wonderful resource for a lot of us at Harvard Kennedy School. And we had a screening planned for March 12th. So you can guess the screening didn't happen because we were living contagion. And so imagine the scariest photo you've seen with global warming, with anything. And that's what we are approaching. And so with COVID-19, we've been given this gift of seeing that the unimaginable is here and we have to act. And so my particular action and call to action as I close is this idea of we are developing a communications campaign to give to nonprofits, to give to governments, to give to individuals about how do you communicate climate. I work with COVID on implementations throughout the United States, and we get pushback on even what contact tracing can do. And that's something we have to bear against. And so the lesson learned is with every crisis is those that are most vulnerable will be exacerbated. So it is an opportunity to look at those most vulnerable populations, to take a stand, whether they're brown like me or whether they look like any of you, if you're not brown. But it's our chance to really make a difference. And if we don't take the difference, ask the dolphins supposedly in Venice in Italy, when will we ever learn? And so if you're interested in learning more about this, I'm so excited. I'm also on the board of Our Climate. You'll hear from one of our founders, Camilla Thorndike, at the end of this hour. But it's a time for us all to act. And that little action might be very little, but it's something we can do to save our earth and save the world for our children. And so thank you so much to be here. This is why we're all in school, and this is why we're here. So thankful. Thank you.
Thanks, Sienna. Next, we have Elisha from the college. Take it away.
Awesome. Just share. Okay. So, hi everyone. I'm Elisha, and today I'd like to share with you my idea for how we can make urbanization sustainable for the future. So, just a brief bit of context. This goes back to sophomore year for me in high school when I read this really incredible book on biomimicry, and I just remember thinking, oh man, like this is it. And so it's cool to be circling back to this idea as I'm graduating. So what exactly is it? Essentially, bio-inspired design and biomimicry, the idea that we would draw from nature to design for human problems. And why we do that? Because we're looking at millions of years of iteration over which nature has solved some of the most difficult problems on Earth, many of which we ourselves face. So why wouldn't we make use of this landscape of potential solutions? So why then would we need this kind of more radical approach to specifically urban design? For a couple of reasons. First being that the urban population is going to explode over these next coming decades. The second being that both the development and operation of cities are incredibly energy intensive and will only grow with time. Oops. And the third reason being that cities as we know them today do not cater well to the needs of the entire population, and leave millions and millions of people in extremely destitute living conditions. So then, given these issues, how can bio-inspired design help? So I'd like to briefly point out a kind of age-old example of bio-inspired design. Maybe some of you have visited this beautiful cathedral, but its branching tree-like columns are actually taken from how trees grow. And using this concept, the designer was more efficiently able to support the massive weight of the roof than with traditional columns. So I thought that was a cool example. But in terms of the future, this could be one day a skyscraper made of bone, or at least of artificial bone. There's a researcher at the Oyen Lab at East Carolina University who's working on replacements for concrete with bone and even eggshells, which are surprisingly strong. And the reason for that being that the concrete industry itself accounts for close to 10% of global emissions. So solutions like this are really crucial as we think about how much urban development and how many buildings are going to be built over the next few decades and beyond. So one key aspect of this kind of general idea of bio-inspired design is where to apply it. Personally, I would say everywhere, but in particular, by focusing on regions that have yet to urbanize, but that will urbanize soon, we can kind of optimize bio-inspired design for two reasons. One being that upgrading existing infrastructure is extremely expensive. Rerouting highways, extending the electric grid, taking down power plants, all of these kind of things that are necessary to make a building, or I'm sorry, make a city more sustainable, cost a lot. And so focusing on non-urbanized areas that do not have such a high barrier to entry because they don't have such heavy existing infrastructure is a key way to kind of lower the costs of bio-inspired design. And then finally, we've kind of assumed so far that urbanization involves this extremely energy intensive process, and we've seen cities urbanize as via the Industrial Revolution. But what if we could simply leapfrog this process, which is doable in areas that have not yet been urbanized? So those are kind of the two key reasons why bio-inspired design in areas that have yet to develop is really going to be key to sustainable development. And just as an interesting kind of case study, India has selected several cities through the Smart Cities mission that would be good candidates for making more sustainable. But it's very much a kind of retrofit approach. And what I would propose, perhaps not for the larger cities like Chennai with 7 million, but for smaller cities like the ones listed here, is that they're big enough to measure urban needs, but there's also room, a lot of room for innovation and making sure that the trajectories of these cities do not match those of, for instance, New Delhi. So to conclude, very briefly, bio-inspired design is a very cool mentality for all areas of innovation, but in particular could be crucial to making sure that the world urbanizes sustainably. Yeah, thank you so much for your attention. And please feel free to reach out with any questions or comments.
Thank you so much for sharing your idea. Continuing on the trend of sustainable urbanization, we're going to hear from Anahid and Mitsue about an integrative solution for water stress in Mexico City. They are both Masters in Design Engineering candidates at the Graduate School of Design and the School of Engineering and Applied Sciences.
Hi everyone, thanks for joining. We are going to talk about our master thesis proposal, an integrated solution to water stress in Mexico City. A quick introduction first. Mitsue here with me has a background in industrial design. I am Anahid, I have a background in architecture. We are graduating from a master in design engineering here at Harvard. We both are strategic designers working on climate change and city sustainability. So as you know, Mexico City will run out of water in 30 years. As we can see in the system map representing the different water flow in the city, this crisis is due to unbalanced water cycle. The city is not using its natural water resources sustainably. In a city divided by inequality, we interviewed extreme users to understand the different consumption patterns in the city and the very different relationships they have to water. We then formulated the hypothesis that Mexico City inhabitants are not consuming water sustainably because they don't perceive water as a finite resource, finite and shared resource. A tool could help raise awareness of the high water stress and the inequality in the city and improve consumption behavior. We designed an integrative solution composed of 3 elements. First, a non-intrusive smart water meter using providing real-time data. Then an engaging platform designed for behavioral change, providing sustainable consumption and education. And third, a tradable water cryptocurrency, providing accountability and involvement of the citizen. The smart water meter has been designed to be affordable, to be non-intrusive, and easy to install. This IoT system will provide real-time data that will be used for data analytics and goal settings.
And we also created an engaging platform that we're going to uncover in the next few minutes. We included behavior change, education, and service. In behavioral change, we created this platform that has a dashboard that is showing you how many remaining liters you have, depending on your goal. So instead of focusing on how much you're consuming, you're actually trying to stay within your actual goal of consumption. We also have a healthy competition parameter that lets you create alliances within districts so that you can see who's actually being the most smart in saving water. And there is a part of trading virtual liters that we'll talk in a second more about. We also wanted to educate citizens on like why the city is so different and the different costs it has, the different sources, the different quality of water that you have across it. And by adding this element and also understanding the relationship of water and history in Mexico City, we're able to provide this education space. And finally, for the water utility, it's really interesting because they also can be really close to their customers by allowing them to pay bills, allowing them to actually have a lot of cost savings in terms of infrastructure, and be able to communicate with them in a very early manner in terms of alerts. So this tradable water cryptocurrency that we created is we take the monthly available resource of the whole city and we divide it into 3 parts: for city resilience, for public services, and finally for the number of citizens that are in the water accounts. These will vary depending on the season, rainy or dry, but what we want to have is a goal of the liters that you have to consume or to be in a sustainable consumption daily, plus virtual liters that are actually the ones that you can trade. So when you are over consuming, that means you're paying some of these virtual liters to someone that has been smart enough and has been saving these liters in a way. What will happen and why this worked really well in Mexico City is because of the heavy subsidization. The cost of water is fixed to the actual price that you pay for it. So what we're trying to do is take this cost savings from every liter that is being saved by the actual citizens' actions and be able to pay for our own infrastructure, to be able to get some for the water utility, and also create some for the water fund that will be able to provide water for those who yet have no connections to water in the city. Finally, the incentive for the citizens is actually being able to use this tradable water cryptocurrency to get this content lottery, national lottery tickets, so that they can have an incentive that goes beyond a small percentage of discount in their bill. And we also believe this is a replicable solution across the world. We see the water crisis is a global matter. And while this was fine-tuned for Mexico City, we have had a lot of interested people from different nationalities that say that this could work in other places. So if you're interested in testing it out or talking more about it, please feel free to reach out to us. Here's our emails, and yeah, thank you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Anahid and Mitsue, and congratulations on your graduation. Next, we have Clea from the college.
Great, thanks so much, Sanjay. My laptop screen is, or my laptop right now, the fan is going kind of loudly, so please someone interrupt me if it becomes louder than my actual speech. I hope it won't be a problem. I'll share my screen. So thanks everyone for tuning in. My name is Clea Schumer. I'm a senior at the college graduating this week. And the pitch that I'm going to be giving is the case for internal carbon pricing at Harvard. This is the project that I spent my senior thesis working on. So first, what is internal carbon pricing? It's essentially a climate policy wherein private institutions impose a carbon price or carbon tax on their own operations and then redirect the money that's collected into some central carbon tax piggy bank. So this is different than traditional governmentally imposed carbon taxing, wherein the government would put the tax on different institutions and then collect the money. In an internal scenario, central administration is taxing each of its divisions separately for their carbon emitting activity, and then that money is staying within the institution. The funds, once maintained centrally, can be used for a variety of institutional purposes. And so for my thesis, I looked at the question of internal carbon pricing at Harvard, and I wanted to first ask, why should Harvard internally price carbon? Are there merits of this policy that work particularly well given Harvard's context? And I first want to just say that internal carbon pricing's primary sort of merit is that it allows institutions to visualize and pursue pathways for achieving greenhouse gas reduction targets, whether they be externally or internally mandated. The idea is that by increasing the price of greenhouse gas emitting activity with the tax, renewable alternatives or low energy alternatives become in comparison the lesser expense. And thus the high carbon emitting activity or the high energy activity is disincentivized in the eyes of financial decision makers. The other side of the coin, of course, is that internal carbon pricing can help to raise that revenue that I was speaking about. And then once this revenue is deployed, the key is that it doesn't leave the institution to go to the government. It rather stays within the institution and can be deployed to finance sustainable investments, efficiency improvements, offsets, purchases, what have you. So there are tons and tons of different options for how to actually spend this money once you pull it out of carbon. There are other reasons as well why institutions of higher education are well suited for internal carbon pricing experimentation. One that I'll just highlight here is the idea of gaining a competitive advantage. One thought is that if you're going to be paying for every single ton of carbon dioxide that you emit, a small amount of money into the tax fund, you're going to quickly realize what your inefficiencies are in your chain of operations. And with this added incentive to avoid paying that tax, you're going to wring those inefficiencies out, which will yield not only energy savings, but also cost savings. And so there's some empirical evidence to suggest that internal carbon pricing within universities has actually helped to save these institutions money in energy costs. There's also this idea of future-proofing. So if we operate under the assumption that I think many of us share that soon in the near future, institutions like Harvard will be regulated under some federal or local regulation, whether it be a carbon price or some other climate policy, there's an idea that companies or institutions that do it first and figure out how to run their operations in a low carbon way will have this leg up or this competitive advantage, as one might say. Cool, so moving on to my recommendations for internal carbon pricing at Harvard, given that context, I want to first just say that I did not work with the underlying assumption that Harvard should do this and then ask afterwards, okay, how should we do it? I first wanted to ask that question of, is there institutional readiness, preparedness, and need for internal carbon pricing at Harvard? And I found that answer to be yes, for a few converging reasons, some of which I'll share here. The first is that Harvard is still predominantly fossil fuel sourced, so about 80% currently. It's also the case that Harvard operates under this commitment to using the campus as a living lab. So this is a commitment to using the campus to innovatively test and pilot new policy solutions, operating under the assumption that we're a little microeconomy that can test things out and then generate lessons for society at large to glean. This is something President Bacow has really emphasized, and so is definitely a critical pillar of sustainability at Harvard. And then finally, we have these fossil fuel goals to be fossil fuel neutral by 2026 and fossil fuel free by 2050. And I just want to qualify these two by saying that for the fossil fuel neutrality goal, we need to raise quite a bit of money to get there and to be able to purchase the offsets that we'll need to be able to reach fossil fuel neutrality. Some $2 to $5 million is expected per year. And then for the 2050 goal, I'm oversimplifying, but I'll just say that there isn't really a high-level roadmap or plan for how to meet this commitment and how to actually get the infrastructure in place and how to finance it. And so internal carbon pricing is a tool that can help us lay that out and plan ahead. So finally, my recommendations for Harvard. I did recommend that Harvard construct an internal carbon pricing program. Can't really get into too many of the details of what that mechanism looks like in this, but happy to chat offline with anyone interested in learning more. I recommended that the price be assigned an elevated monetary value that's consistent not just with climate damages, as are most carbon taxes, but also health damages. And that's been a critical part of Harvard's framing of its climate challenge. And then I recommended that revenue be devoted to first purchasing offsets in alignment with Harvard's 2026 fossil fuel neutrality goal, and then hopefully remainder is devoted to helping Harvard reach fossil fuel freedom by 2050 by investing in renewable energy and efficiency promoting investments. So with that, thank you all so much for tuning in. Like I said, very happy to talk more about this offline, answer any questions, or get sort of a coalition going. I definitely want to continue to advocate for this, and any interest is welcome and would love to hear from you. So thanks so much.
Thank you, Clea, and thank you for sharing part of your thesis with us. Next up, we have Camila, a Master in Public Administration mid-career candidate at the Harvard Kennedy School, sharing Green New Deals, winning the states.
Thank you, Danny, and thanks everyone. Just confirming you can hear me okay? Great, all right. So first I wanna say that the single most important action that we can take to save the world is to get out the vote. So I hope that you will please volunteer for the national election and all down ballot races starting now. But there's still a reason that I'm going to talk about state action today. Specifically, I'm going to give you a sneak peek into a new movement for a Green New Deal here in New England. A Green New Deal to recover from the pandemic, to build a fair economy, and to fight the climate crisis. The reason that state action matters is congressional gridlock. More than 10 years have passed since the near miss of putting a federal cap on climate pollution. And since then, the states have been the laboratories for democracy, as Justice Brandeis said nearly a century ago, and remains very true today. So for the past 10 years, I have been pursuing this mission of state leadership. In Oregon, I helped launch Our Climate, which Sienna mentioned, and she's now a board member, which I'm very excited about, a national organization that's empowering young advocates for equitable carbon pricing policy. And shout out to Paige, our executive director, who's on the call right now, as well as many of our team. In the District of Columbia, then, I coordinated a coalition, and shout out to Joel Novi, who's a fellow Harvard grad who made that happen as well, behind the strongest subnational climate policy in the country. And this policy included 100% clean electricity and unprecedented energy efficiency standards for buildings. But this summer, I'm excited to bring all this together and build grassroots power and governing majorities for Green New Deal policies in the 6 states of New England. They are Maine, Vermont, New Hampshire, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, and Connecticut. You've probably heard of Green New Deal, but what does it mean? For Renew, this new regional coalition that launches in June, it means tackling the 3 overlapping crises of the pandemic, extreme economic inequality, and climate change. The Renew Alliance includes more than 50 labor, environmental, social justice, and youth organizations. Our goal is to energize a movement for an ambitious Green New Deal in each state and for the region as a whole. At its core, this policy platform means a jobs guarantee, that every resident who wants a job will have one. And to get there, states will preserve and create well-paying jobs with benefits by supporting local businesses and starting public employment initiatives to modernize our region's infrastructure. These initiatives will be designed to ensure that everyone's basic needs are met: housing, healthcare, food, energy, transportation, and clean air and clean water. Renew has a plan to meet these needs through policies adaptable to each state. But we all know that plans are just good ideas without a movement behind them. Renew aims to win by integrating 3 separate, usually separate threads of movement work into a unified project. They are policy development, grassroots organizing, and electoral campaigning. Our first program is to develop Green New Deal policy plans for economic recovery, rapid decarbonization, and a just transition for each state and for the region as a whole. Secondly, the Renew Coalition will recruit, train, and support more than 150 state and local candidates across the region who will run on a Green New Deal platform. Our third key mission is to coordinate grassroots organizing and legislative advocacy campaigns to back our new champions in the state houses and pass these policies in 2021. Our lead partners in this work so far include Sunrise, Rights and Democracy in Vermont and New Hampshire, the Massachusetts Green New Deal Roundtable, Maine's People's Alliance, and Connecticut Citizens Action Group, along with Indigenous tribes, frontline communities, and local chapters of the AFL-CIO and other unions. Our policy analysis is being led by Brown University's Climate and Development Lab and the Stockholm Environmental Institute. Frontline communities and workers have central roles in shaping our policies, and racial and economic justice priorities were embedded in the policy model at the outset. Our Green New Deal policy plan will completely decarbonize New England's electricity sector by 2030 and our building and transportation sectors by 2040, while developing thriving, equitable, and sustainable local economies that center the priorities of workers and frontline communities and create well-compensated unionized jobs. We are developing a comprehensive strategy to fully finance the policy plans, including green bonds and green banks. And this interwoven policy approach matters to me because it's the right thing to do and it's the smart thing to do. Workers, vulnerable communities, and climate advocates, our shared struggle is for a world where everyone can be whole, healthy, safe. And we need each other to win. Renew is driven by this vision of what's right and what's powerful. By training and supporting Green New Deal candidates, we plan to win governing majorities region-wide in the 2020 elections. The candidates are a multiracial, multi-generational group that includes teachers, waitresses, nurses, immigrants, college students, and climate justice activists. We're building a movement of volunteers to help these candidates campaign, phone bank, and canvass. And the candidates all pledge to refuse campaign contributions from the fossil fuel industry. To ensure they have the resources needed to win, we are building a network of donors and launching a digital fundraising program to build a base of small dollar grassroots support. And we will need your help. So I hope you'll watch your inbox for my contact information and be in touch. Thank you so much.
That was awesome.
Thanks so much, Camila. That was really fantastic. Thank you to all speakers. Congratulations. We're very excited to have you part of Harvard Alumni for Climate and the Environment in the future, and very excited to be here to celebrate you today. It is my distinct honor to get to welcome our final wrap-up speaker for the event, Professor Rand Wentworth. Rand Wentworth teaches at the Harvard Kennedy School and is a senior fellow in the Center for Public Leadership. He is President Emeritus of the Land Trust Alliance, a federation of 1,000 conservation groups with 4.6 million members. Professor Wentworth has testified before Congress on multiple occasions and led the coalition to persuade Congress to pass conservation legislation. During his leadership, land trusts doubled the pace of conservation in America and have now protected over 56 million acres. I am particularly happy to have the opportunity to introduce Professor Wentworth because I not only took his class last year as a student in the mid-career MPA program, but had the opportunity to work with him this year as a course coach in leadership and environmental conflicts. And he has been a great inspiration and voice of encouragement for young environmental leaders, not only at the Kennedy School, but all around Harvard's campus. So let me turn it over to you, Rand, for our closing remarks.
Thank you, Brittany. Well, inspiration is abounding here. I'm just blown away, and I see many, many friends participating tonight. I recognize and just celebrate those who spoke, the imagination, the creativity, the ingenuity. We have a tough challenge ahead of us, but we have really great thinking, determination, passion. As we saw tonight, building renewable energy at healthcare centers in developing nations. Sienna talked about both the loss, but then the awakening, that this in some strange way is a gift that we're brought together. And there is this awakening that we can do things we didn't think were possible. Alicia, let's see, Anna Hyde, Mitsui, let's say the bio-inspired sustainable future, Anna Hyde and Mitsui, Mexico City running out of water. But then there's a smart meter And the cryptocurrency for tradable water credits, amazing. And Clea talks to us about carbon pricing and cost savings at the Harvard, starting at home. And Camila, the Green New Deal and political organizing. Really great, inspiring thinking. I just want to recognize that the people here tonight, some are alums, some are graduating in 2 days, some will continue on as students. But for all of us, this has been a really horrific time. My heart especially goes out to those who have family, friends who have suffered with the illness. And for those who had job offers or summer internship offers that were rescinded and now face a very, very different world. This is hard. These are hard times. And I recognize that it may feel like, like your life has been put on hold. And I want to just tell you a brief story of a man that I know very well. It's my grandfather. His name is Royal Lindbergh. He's passed away now. He's in his prime. He was tall, lean, muscular. He's 6'2", which made him the tallest man in his county, a rural county in north central Minnesota. He had blue eyes, dark brown hair. He always wore blue coveralls, leather boots, and you'd see him with a pipe sticking out of his mouth. And from when he was a young child, he was in hard labor. He was plowing fields, he was hauling produce to the market, he was milking cows. He was drafted to fight in the front lines in France since the First World War. 9 million people died in those front lines. He survived. But before he left Europe, the Spanish influenza raced through Europe and 50 million people died. He survived. To come back to an America that was on one great roaring 20s party, the robber barons, and drove us into the Great Recession, a hailstorm wiped out all of his crops. The bank foreclosed on his homestead farm. He lost his fields, his barn, his home, everything. And he survived. So here we are. I tell you a story that's 100 years past. He ended up flourishing. He raised 3 wonderful children. One of them is my mother. And in the American dream that we sometimes believe in, he hung in there and he survived. So here we now are in a time of a pandemic, of also massive unemployment. And this climate nightmare with wildfires and hurricanes, floods, drought, famine. It just seems like a taste of the apocalypse to come. We are told, and in many of our classes we hear, it's too late. You can't run the numbers and get solar and wind and get us to a point where we can reverse climate change. And we're told that it's impossible. Well, we have met impossible before. In the other pandemic in this United States of African slavery, it took 75 years, starting with some Quaker protesters in England and a civil war in the United States to end African slavery. And we stopped through many lives and much sacrifice, the invasion of Nazi Germany. Nelson Mandela emerged from 27 years in prison to end apartheid and birth a new nation. The Berlin Wall fell, ending the Cold War. I would never have believed when I was a kid that our Supreme Court and our military would affirm the rights of gay and lesbian citizens. And an African-American became president of the United States. All of these were utterly impossible when I was coming of age. And I recognize that it may at times feel hopeless. and that it will take a long time. But you too can defy the impossible. You may suffer loss and grieve. It may be hard for the next few years, but we must rise above despair. In one of his poems, Wendell Berry called on us to, quote, practice resurrection. Your most important work as a climate leader, I believe, is to keep hope. St. Augustine, some 1500 years ago, wrote that hope has two beautiful daughters. One, their names are anger and courage. Anger at the way things are, and courage to work to change them. We, I believe, on this call are both angry and courageous, and we will reverse climate change. There's some of it I can't explain how we will get there, whether it's technology, whether it's radical conservation, but with our forbearance, with our strength, with our determination, we will turn this thing around. Gandhi once said, first they ignore you, then they laugh at you, then they fight you, then you win. I want to close with a quote from Rebecca Solnit, the author of Hope in the Dark. She writes, your opponents would love for you to believe that it's hopeless, that you have no power, that there's no reason to act, that you can't win. But hope is a gift you don't have to surrender. To hope is to gamble. It's to bet on the future. Hope just means another world might be possible, not promised, not guaranteed. It will take everything you have to steer the future away from the annihilation of the Earth's treasures. To hope is to give yourself to the future. The world desperately needs you now. Thank you.
Thank you, Rand. We could think of no better person to give our graduates a send-off than you. We really appreciate all the mentorship and thought leadership you provide across the university and the sense of hope you're bringing to all of us today. That concludes the end of our formal presentation here. We are opening up the chat function if you want to share any thoughts, well wishes, comments, feedback for our speakers or for the other graduates on the call. And we'll be sending you an email with more information about the Harvard Alumni for Climate and the Environment Shared Interest Group, how you can join and reach out to us, and also how you can reach out to any of our speakers today. But thank you for taking time to join us for this celebration of our graduates, and we hope to see you at future Harvard Alumni and Harvard Alumni for Climate and the Environment events. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sanjay. As a speaker, we just are so appreciative of you. And I want to say that we've lost a lot in what's happened with COVID-19, but we've gained a lot. And I'm sure there's a lot of people that are on today that might not have been in Cambridge this week if we had an in-person celebration. And so I think we all have to recognize that and be super thankful for that. And so thank you. Thank all the leadership of the new organization, Susan, Brittany, everybody for bringing us together. And we could talk again if no one else has something to say.
And if you're still on, you see
I
all
have
the
like
scrolling
7
eyes.
minutes.
Everyone is seeing your warm wishes of encouragement. And we thank you again for attending. Congratulations, everyone. Congratulations, class of 2020, all families, friends, support structures, communities that have helped raise these individuals. And hopefully you all are inspired and motivated to run through this commencement week and see the potential that exists in these digital formats moving forward.
There are such great comments in the chat box right now, and I'm seeing some that are asking how we can connect and keep the conversation going. Sanjay, I know you spoke a little bit to that, but do you want to maybe elaborate?
Yeah, of course. So for those that are still on, you'll receive an email in about 20 minutes with all the contact info for all of our speakers. And you'll have a chance to connect with them. Please feel free to reach out to them with any thoughts, advice, encouragement. If you want to work with them, if you want to hire them, you know, everyone is, there's a lot of opportunities here to engage with folks. So, you know, they're excited to hear from you, and feel free to reach out and support the work that they're doing. I think with that, we'll bring the call to a close. Thank you again for attending the event. We'll be sharing a recording of this event later on. We just record the event, and we'll go through and just kind of clean it up, and we'll share that with you afterwards. And again, if you would like to become a member of the Harvard Alumni for Climate and the Environment and attend more of these kinds of events, you can go to bit.ly/join HACE. bit.ly/join HACE. Thanks again, and we'll see you at our next event.
Thanks, Sanjay.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Rand. Thanks, Danny.
Thank you all.
Sanjay, great to see you. Camila.